Blue and white.
The women in there, anything?
Yeah.
How long do you think it would be?
Madam Clerk, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Let's have the roll open up for this item. This is the Arts, Parks, Health, and Aging Committee. It's the 25th day of May. And what's before us right now?
There are 6 items.
Mr. Wesson, pending the arrival of Mr. Reyes. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Item number 1 is a communication.
Bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bless all of you, too.
You'll do anything to get attention.
Mr. Wesson, you're too much.
Item number 1 is a communication from the mayor and an ordinance relative to the transfer of the Commission for Children, Youth, and Their Families to the Community Development Department and the consolidation with the Citizens Unit for Participation to form a new board of Community and Family Services Commissioners.
I see the mayor's deputy mayor's here, so Susie, you want to come up and speak? All righty. All right, thank you very much.
Hello, Annalyn Rocio from the Mayor's Office. So earlier in the year, City Council approved the restructure of the Human Services Department, and the following ordinance will be part of that restructuring of the Human Services Department. It basically consolidates 2 advisory boards under 1 new commission, and the 2 advisory boards are the Children, Youth, and Their Families and the Citizens Unit for Participation, and it'll be formed into the new Community and Family Services Commission. It'll focus on anti-poverty strategies and linking them with CDBG-funded programs.
When I talked to the mayor, Mr. Wesson, and I said, you got to keep the Youth Commission or Youth Council in the mayor's office. Could you explain that?
Yes, the Youth Council will be transferred over to the Mayor's Office under Neighborhood Community Services section, and so it'll be staffed with the Mayor's Office staff.
So give the young people an opportunity to get engaged. This sounds good. This is what we've talked about. So, any questions, Mr. Wesson?
No, none whatsoever.
Okay.
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. Move forward there. Thank you. Thank you. Next item.
Item number 2 is also communication from the mayor and an ordinance relative to the elimination of the Human Services Department and the transfer of the Human Relations Commission and the Commission on the Status of Women to the Community Development Department.
So with this ordinance, it's basically a simple transfer of the 2 commissions, CSW and HRC, to CDD, and it'll create some cost savings for the general fund. By
Great.
transferring it.
I just came up with an idea, Mr. Wesson. I'm okay with these being transferred to the department, but I hope one day, as the mayor recognizes, whether it's a month or a day and a holiday, that he would recognize, and I'm just throwing this out as somebody, Susan B. Anthony, or Women's Rights Day in City Hall, as well as Human Relations Day, whatever it is, if they could look at the calendar, the national calendar, so even though they're going to another department, they're still seated in some way, and we recognize people. So if you could look at that from a friendly motion, if I could add that to that. Is that all right with you, Mr. West?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, great. So ordered. Thank you. Next item.
And item number 3 are reports from the Los Angeles Department of Aging and the CAO relative to executing contracts with successful bidders of the 2010-11 Community Development Block Grant Alternative Housing for the Elderly and Legal Services Programs.
My name is Jacob Wood, and I'm representing the Department of Aging, and we're here seeking approval of the successful bidders for the Legal Services Program and the Alternative Housing for the Elderly Program. We're also seeking approval to extend the EARS contract for 4 months so we can finish and complete our RFP process for this selection of the bidder for the Emergency Alert Response Program.
Great.
Maria Ramos with the CAO's office. We do have one technical correction in the recommendations. Recommendation number 3, the extension of the EARS program. Right now it reads 4 months effective April 1st, 2010 through June 31st. It should say July 31st, 2010.
All right. Good catch. There's only 30 days in June.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Madam Clerk, you correct that?
Yes.
Mr. Wesson, any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Approval. Thank you, Mr. Wesson.
Thank you.
Next item.
And item number 4 is a report from the CAO relative to a joint use agreement with the LAUSD relative to the Ricardo Lisaraga Elementary School.
Good morning, Veronica Salumbiras with the Office of the CAO. In November 2005, the Council authorized a land exchange transaction between the Los Angeles Unified School District and the Department of Recreation and Parks that resulted in a reconfigured Avalon San Pedro Park and the Richard Lisaraga Elementary School, formerly known as the Jefferson New Elementary School Number 1. At that time, the council also instructed the Department of Recreation and Parks to negotiate a joint use agreement with LAUSD. The department reports that it has completed negotiations with LAUSD and that the negotiated terms are contained in the proposed joint use agreement that is currently before you. Under the terms of the joint use agreement, the city and LAUSD will have shared use of 4 handball courts, 2 basketball courts, and a turf play field. The term of the proposed joint use agreement is 40 years. The city shall have the use of the joint use areas between the hours of 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekends, as well as on days when school is not in session. The city will be responsible for its proportionate share of the maintenance and utility costs of the facility. Funding for the operational and maintenance costs of the joint use areas must be identified within available funds in the Department of Recreation and Parks budget. Department representatives are here to answer any questions you may have.
So is anyone here from LA Unified?
No. I'm Joel Alvarez, Rec and Parks, and I'm here with John Barraza from Rec and Parks as well.
Right. Just a couple of questions. On the maintenance of the facility, how have you found that going? These other joint use agreements?
I don't have the specific information as far as the funding source for the maintenance, but I was informed this morning by our superintendent of the Pacific Region, Mark Mariscal, that there is a budget for the maintenance. We don't have anything for the operations in terms of programming, but the maintenance is covered.
Will the bathrooms be open when the schools, is the bathrooms for the school or the park?
The bathrooms are off-site. They're on the street, so they're open.
On the street, meaning they're not in the school?
They're part of the automatic public toilet program that was being sponsored by Bureau of Street Services.
Okay, so they're not what we would call traditional park
Correct.
bathrooms. They're the
APTs, automatic public toilet.
the CBS Deco.
Correct.
Okay. And is the turf artificial turf or is it turf grass?
I believe it's turf grass. The park is combination of hard space and landscaping.
Mm-hmm. And what signage do you have that says this is a joint use between the Los Angeles Parks Department and the Los Angeles School District?
I'm not aware of any specific signage.
I think I should ask Mr. Weston, we just did a joint use, and sometimes it's tough to get into the joint, so to speak, because there's just the management of the sites. So there should be something that says this is a joint use between the city and the Unified School District, and so that people realize that, to maximize, figure out the words, or to talk to your Mike Scholl and just figure it out. So there's a posting of the sign. And I also want to make sure next to an elementary school, there's a balance to protect. It's different than at some other schools, because elementary schools sometimes have other challenges that we want to protect from that. Mr. Weston?
And you're with LAUSD?
No, sir, I'm with Rec and Parks Real Estate.
Rec and Parks also.
So we don't have a representative here from...
No, but they support this, by the way?
Yes,
I'm taking your word.
supportive.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's
Yeah.
the reason why, I think this makes a sense without a doubt, Mr. Chairman, but I was hopeful that someone from LAUSD would be here, because I'm having a dickens of a time trying to work out an agreement with them where it relates to Dorsey High School and
Right.
Rancho Cienega. It seems like forever, and we just can't get them to, they use all the facilities at a discounted rate, and we just improved that
Right.
field, $2 million
Right.
bucks, and we've got other things going. So I thought I was going to stick it to you. And I missed my chance. Let me just sneeze so I can get an acknowledgement from the crowd.
Go ahead.
That's it.
He's terrible. what we're going to do is move this forward to council, but I think what I'd like to ask, that the Director of Real Estate, through his proper channels, at some future time, have a meeting, just a general meeting on a report on joint use. How many joint use projects we are having? Have a representative of LA Unified here, and a representative of Mr. Scholl and Mr. Muckery, and a superintendent from Unified to say, these are our joint use, because we have a similar problem where we did a track improvement and a field improvement, and it's working, except it's the people who paid for it, who live around the school, say, well, we'd like to get in and run on the weekends, and how do we do that? And so, okay, so that's a different item. We're going forward. Lisa, put a motion together. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Next item.
Item number 5 is a motion, Weezer Laban Chan, relative to reinstalling street signage indicating the name of Sanchez Street in accordance with El Pueblo sign policy and sign design and installation guidelines.
Good morning, sir. Robert Andrade, General Manager for El Pueblo.
Right.
Good morning, Sue Ellen Chang, the Senior Curator at El Pueblo.
We prepared a packet for you that gives you a little bit of indication as to the street in question, Sanchez Street. It takes you through a little bit of the history, and I'll ask Ms. Chen to walk you through that. The packet starts with a photograph of Sanchez Street circa 1920. Would be this photograph here.
So the site of Sanchez Street is located south side of the old plaza. Was opened in 1861 through the Common Council's motion. It was the effort to save the further decline of the old plaza area, and it was in honor of the Sanchez family, naming the Vicente Sanchez, who was the mayor of the time in 1831, and the second time 1845, and his grandson Tomas Sanchez was then the very well-respected sheriff from 1860 to 1867. Since then, the Sanchez Street have been pretty busy street in the sense in 1870s, the opening of the Lugo House, not Lugo House, the Pico House, as well as the Merced Theater, the first theater of the city of Los Angeles, and the Pico House was the first 3 stories building, as well as the finest hotel at the time. And Sanchez Street have received many dignitaries, such as the Pico families and Sepulveda families. Also, we have the visitors, Archduke Ludwig Salvador from the Austria in 1876.
I think so.
And the neighborhood later on became the gathering place for Mexican-American trucking vendors, as well as new communities for Chinatown. Many of the Chinese community leaders were born actually on Sanchez Street, and it was the sites of the Garnier Building that housed many important Chinese community organizations.
Well, it certainly is good research that you put together. And you would have a similar sign that you would, like the sign here?
Correct. The motion instructs us to look at two issues. One would be a signage at the entrance, and what I'll do is I'll have you look at this photograph. This is Arcadia Street, if you will.
Right.
Okay. If you notice that one pole that we have there, that would be, we believe that would be an ideal place for a sign similar to most of the city signs that we have, directional sign that would say Sanchez Street.
Yeah, the only thing I would suggest, and work with obviously the councilman of the district, but sometimes these signs, they make people think it's a street, So we may want to work with John Fisher in the Department of Transportation and create a historic sign, because you don't want people turning right to go up Sanchez, because now it's closed for traffic, but there could be something that would make recognition.
Another possibility would be on these, the cement pylons, if you will,
Uh-huh.
would be a plaque there as well.
Right, like the old, out, in your district, Herb, they got these big stones on the blocks.
Yeah.
You know, that would be
Some
something
of
good,
them.
yeah, some of them. Well, that's good to work. Well, this is great work that you guys put together.
Well, it's, Ms. Chen, as you know, she's a fabulous curator. and has
She's
been with
the
us.
absolute best.
Mr. Chair, can I ask
Yeah,
a question?
sure.
Do we know what year or approximately what year this photo was taken?
That is about mid-1950s, because if you look at the two photos, one, the earlier one with the
These
horse-drawn
two.
wagon,
These two.
right, and so the ones that have horse-drawn wagon on the street have many more buildings than the ones that you just asked me in the 1950s, because of the building of the Santa Ana Freeway. Many of those buildings were, demolished to make way for the building of the freeway.
Right.
Okay, so now, being the historian that you are, did William Bonelli win the race for State Board of Equalization?
We can find that out
We'll
for you,
find
sir.
out by now.
He lost and became a county supervisor. Is that what happened?
No.
Some of our favorite pictures as well. One of the things when you begin doing research, as Ms. Chen has done, you find that there's been periods of time where Mexican American, very influential, obviously the Spanish and so forth. But Sue Ellen made reference to it at one point. The Garnier block was rented particularly to Chinese and Chinese Americans. And what we have some photos here of Chinese youth playing baseball.
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Which is just fabulous.
And
No,
that-
this is fabulous.
You notice the caps or
Yeah.
hats, it was homemade.
What kind of hat is that?
It's a box, it's a paper box.
Really?
Cal OSHA approved it.
Yeah.
Youth sports. So,
Thank you.
when did they change Sunset Boulevard, believe it or not? I remember in my time as a youth coming to Alvera Street, Sunset Boulevard did go through the plaza,
Actually, up to the plaza, yes.
up to the plaza.
Right.
What year was that?
I would say that it was probably after the state took over,
In the 60s or?
the 50s.
We'll check. I remember, a whole different configuration, but this is good research, so we'll come up with the right sign plan. Mr. Fisher, do you want to join us here? Mr. Fisher, the resident historian of the 9th through 15th and 9th through 1st districts.
I'm sorry, council members, I am compelled to speak. Greg Fisher, Office of Councilwoman Jan Perry. Tomas Sanchez owned the Rancho La Cienega o Paso de la Tijera, which was a portion of what Councilman Wesson now represents, actually a large portion, running from Expo Rail south into the Baldwin Hills, which were originally the Sanchez Hills. Unfortunately, when the Temple and Workman Bank failed in 1875, one of the issues that caused Sanchez to lose his property was he had signed over a large mortgage on the property as a help to Temple and Workman to E.J. Baldwin, which is now why it's called the Baldwin Hills instead of the Sanchez Hills.
Right.
And there's a lot more than that, as you know, but we won't go there.
Lucky Baldwin was lucky.
He was.
Right.
Very lucky.
Right. And Mitchell Torina, just to let you know,
Wow.
was the governor of Upper Baja, which signed the treaty that stopped the war between Mexico and then the Bear Flag Republic of California, right outside Universal Studios. And Mitchell Torina is the steepest street. And Judge Harry Pergerson's dad was a postman, and he used to walk Mitchell Torina. And back then, they delivered mail twice a day, very steep street. So all these little histories. So it's good to recognize that. And Sue Ellen, thank you for the work that you do.
Yeah, this was I enjoyed.
Right.
I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doesn't happen often around here, so
No.
thank you.
Anytime.
good.
And it was educational, Mr. Laban.
Thank
got
you for
it.
the opportunity.
No, you bet you did a great job. Thank you.
So 19.
Yeah, now who was
1950?
Jesse, let me ask you, who was Jesse Chavez?
I don't know.
He was a council member.
I was born in
Where-
Cleveland, Ohio.
I know, but I'm just thinking, Chavez, does that name mean anything to you? Chavez Ravine. Did you know that, Mr. Smith? I mean, Mr. Fisher?
There were 5 ravines up in the Elysian Hills.
No, but you know who Jesse Chavez was?
No, I did not.
He was a council member, and And Mr. Reyes knew that, and I'm sorry Mr. Reyes is not here because he tells us all the history, but it's interesting history to look behind. I always, when I'm in a town, even our own town, I try to get lost looking at the markers, which are very important. Next item.
Next item is item number 6, and that is a motion, Perry Weezer, relative to various actions regarding the donation, fabrication, installation, and maintenance of the statue of Cyrus the Great at Pershing Square.
Good morning, council members. Greg Fisher, Office of Councilwoman Jen Perry.
Wait a minute, Mr. Chairman, do you have photos?
How big?
Do you have a packet for the members?
I'm afraid, Councilman, that we're a little light on that just yet. The council member is pleased to recommend the acceptance of a gift by the family of Ezatola Delajani. This would be the fabrication and installation of a bronze statue to Cyrus the Great to be installed in Pershing Square. The late Cyrus the Great, who lived some 2,500 years ago, is widely acknowledged as, if not the first, one of the earliest human rights advocates, having taken over most of the Middle East 2,500 years ago, and having advocated for the rights of all, including people whose lands he had conquered, and stating unequivocally that he did not wish to rule over people who did not want him to rule over them. He was the one who freed the Jews in the Babylonian exile and sent them back to what is now basically Palestine, Israel. And the Delajanis have graciously offered this gift to the city at no cost to the city, either in its installation, earlier fabrication, design, or maintenance. And the council member wishes to recommend that the city accept the gift.
And what part of the park?
That hasn't been determined.
Will they determine what part of it is?
Right. That'll have to be worked out.
Good. What was the name of Pershing Square before it was Pershing Square?
Well, Councilman has had several names. La Plaza Abaja was its first name. It was called 6th Street Park. It was called Central Park, with the outlying parks of West Lake, East Lake, and South. And then Pershing came along after World War I.
Very good. I'm just testing you, Greg. You're doing well.
Mr. Chairman, maybe one day they have the opportunity to watch you two after a beer or so. That would be a very interesting discussion.
I think Mr. Fisher and I would have ice cream sodas.
Well, ice cream sodas.
You know.
Councilman, people have tried that with me. It doesn't work. It's as bad with drink as without.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fisher, you're very good. My best to your councilwoman. We're going to recommend approval on that and coordinate with the proper channels. And you're also going to go, Mr. Fisher, will this supersede going to the Parks Commission? Because they have some independence from us.
At this point, it's my understanding that it will go to Cultural Affairs and also to the Parks Commission.
Okay.
I don't claim any expertise on that.
All right, okay. So that we should find out, because it is a gift, it is a park, so they should do that. Thank you. This completes the agenda, but we do have one public comment card. Margarita Fernandez.
That was an enjoyable meeting.
Yeah, they did work at Sue Ellen. She's very good.
Okay. Greetings and good morning. I am here to speak on an issue of very importance to us, to me especially, since I'm nearby. And it starts like this. The residents on Patton Street are proactive, for they have vested interests on their street, such that the residents petitioned to remain in Council District 1 10 years ago when redistricting took place, since we were working on a project with a city-owned facility located at 303 North Patton Street. When the facility was first opened prior to that time, the first 3 tenants were nonprofits, the Boys Club of Southern California, Hollywood Boys and Girls Club Challengers, and the hours were Monday through Friday, 12 to 6 p.m., no weekends, programs were free, no renting out the facility. In addition, and of course there was no problems, in addition, facility received a variance for 6 parking spaces as opposed to the amount of 145 that it would have had when it was first built. There was no problem because it was a neighborhood site, and the problems began when the last tenant, the Echo Park Boys and Girls Club, did not respect the hours or the neighborhood, and basically did what they wished. Parking was taken away, and no parking signs, no parking from 6:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and 1:30 to 4:30 on school days were put, yet there was no school. However, this remained, and signs have been recently removed. However, we have been notified that the new tenants, which is the Department of Recreation and Parks, has submitted to LADOT to request that no overnight parking signs be put around the facility. Well, we have gone out and have noticed that at some other facilities, there are indeed no overnight parking, such as the Echo Park Recreation Center on Bellevue. We have 1, 2, and then, of course, also on Cypress Park. These are sites that do not have no overnight parking, so it's like, why would you even put something like that at a neighborhood site? So in essence, what we're trying to say is we should at least be allowed the residents to participate once the scheduling for this site under the Department of Recreation and Parks to participate in reference to the hours of operation of that site, because we do not wish to go through what we've already gone through the past 10 years under the Boys and Girls Club of Echo Park, and we are entitled to the use of enjoyment of property. And I thank you so much.
What we're going to do is, Monica Valencia is here, who's Mr. Reyes' top deputy. Have you guys met?
Mm-hmm. I know I've seen her.
Yeah, you could visit with her afterwards and work with the council office and try to resolve and try to, what we call, meet mutual grounds.
Mm-hmm. Very well, and I thank you so much.
All right, have a good day. All right, Madam Clerk, anything else before us? Matters adjourned. Thank you.